going to bring in Jay Glazer here. And Jay, thank you for staying, even though Dan's not here. I appreciate that. Very nice to meet you. You can check out his podcast, Unbreakable with Jay Glazer, a mental health podcast, and his book, Unbreakable, How I Turned My Depression and Anxiety into Motivation, and You Can Too. Jay, you've been to a few training camps so far. The Jets are a huge topic here because of Stugotz. What was the most interesting part about your time with the Jets?
Man, my most interesting part was the damn show that was over there. It was like the 16th, hole at the Waste Management Classic. It was wild. It was. Then they had like a celebrity row in the middle. I've been my 31st year covering the NFL. I've never seen some like that before.
And it's just Aaron Rodgers and just the New York, that marriage just turns it into such a circus?
I think so, and Hard Knocks as well. I mean, hell, even Woody Johnson the other day had a Hard Knocks shirt when he walked past. So I just think the whole thing is, and look, the Jets haven't had hope for such a long time. So, you know how it is in New York. You know, when you have something that you haven't had in a while, then everybody kind of goes really overboard. Now, I will say this, if they can keep the offensive line intact, and that's the big question everybody's talking about there. It's like, man, it's if our line, and they got to get Dwayne Brown back, and if Mekhi Becton can get it, then this is the team that they certainly have the puzzle pieces. And here's the thing I love about the Jets is they're young guys, right? Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. In New York, it's really hard to differentiate between being famous and being great, right? Everybody there, they're famous because they play in New York. And a lot of guys think being famous is the same as being great. It is not. Being famous is not the same as being great. Those stars are really humble stars. Those stars are guys that aren't going to get swept up in it and affect their play. And I saw it, firsthand in New York with Strahan and Tiki when, they did a bunch of media and they were stars, but man, they were able to shine on the field. Some guys weren't able to do it. But these guys, I think, are equipped to do it. I'm believing in the Jets. I'm buying in the Jets. Even if their offensive line isn't what they were hoping it would be, Aaron, what makes him so dangerous is when the play breaks down and that second play starts. So even if the offensive line isn't terrific and Aaron starts rolling around and improvising, he's still a very dangerous quarterback.
Well, Jay, what I'm curious about with Aaron, and I want to know what kind of sense you got from him, maybe from his teammates. I know he's not trying to compare himself to Tom Brady at all times or any time, really, but coming from one team to the other and then having that immediate success the way Tom Brady did, how much of that do you get the sense that Aaron really wants to do because of Tom? Because you saw him take less money, you saw them sign Dalvin Cook. It seems like he wants to put everything in place to make sure he could at least match what Tom did when he changed teams.
I don't know if it's comparing yourself to Tom Brady because there'll be way too many rings to try and catch up to. Yeah. But I think a lot of it's also like, Aaron's one of those guys that kind of needs something to get ticked off on. So I think it's, proven Green Bay Packers. But look, I've known Aaron for a long time. I did see a different Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's trying to enjoy this process more. He's being, I thought it was authentic how he's being with people there. But, he was, I saw a different, not as edgy Aaron Rodgers when I went out there and talked to him.
Do you think he ever fabricates some of the things for himself to get frustrated with?
Like makes up.
Yeah, like it is like he kind of creates
I think they all do. They all do. Yeah. I remember the last year Eagles and Chiefs, and I was in there in the Chiefs locker room. Mahomes was like asking about stuff about the Eagles, coming up with like the littlest things for him to get ticked off at him. And they're like, somebody said to me, it's a Michael Jordan thing. He does the same thing. He's just trying to come up with things.
Did you set up a frame on protein powder behind you?
Do I what?
You have the frame that you have for the congratulations on the record-setting viewers. It looks like it's set up on protein powder.
Yeah, it's got like
It is my Unbreakable protein powder.
Okay,
which you can get at GNC. That's right. Bam. How about that?
Unbreakable and holds up photos.
This is a new office, so I'm trying to get this thing. It's a little janky right now, but why not have a little product placement?
Yeah, leave it to Billy to point that out.
Are you okay, by the way? Like, things have been crazy in LA the past couple of days.
So yesterday I had a crazy week. I left for training camp the 24th of July, was going straight through. Unfortunately, my fiance had to put her dog down a couple of days ago, so I had to race back from jet camp and be with her here this week. It's been a hard week, so I'm glad I am here with her so we can deal with what happened. So yesterday at about noon, we lost power. Then our driveway flooded. Then we're kind of stuck here, and we figured out a way to manually open our gate and get out of here. And then when we got out of here, we went somewhere, and there was an earthquake.
Wow.
So it's like we had the yesterday. It's like, and so I'm like, all right, I don't know who is being a complete asshole here in LA that got to get thrown over the like Jonah, but someone got to go because they're bringing the apocalypse.
Is the worst part over, as far as you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping. I don't know. I'm hoping.
How old was the dog?
13, a little Frenchie.
Okay. So it wasn't a surprise. It was a
lived a
13.
full life.
Okay.
No, it was though, because it was just, no, we didn't expect that now. She was like, great. And then last week, boom, went downhill fast.
Jay, what about Aaron's old team? Are we finally going to see a Packers team that is not relevant or doesn't have a Hall of Famer at quarterback? Because I don't know if Jordan Love's going to be it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can buy into Jordan Love until I see a team start game planning against them. You know, this right now, preseason is one thing, and I've heard, I keep hearing both sides of it. But until he, on Sundays, the team's game plan, and he could step up, I don't think it's fair for any of us to anoint him one way or the other.
Well, what are his strengths? Then? What kind of quarterback is he?
We haven't seen enough. I mean, strong arm. Teammates like him. Is he probably a different kind of leader than he's trying to embrace the leadership role, but totally different type of leader than Aaron was. Aaron would make sure you knew if you weren't doing your job right, he would make sure you knew you weren't doing your job right. And you certainly didn't want to disappoint him. Jordan's not going to do that.
I want your help here in formulating my opinion on the LA Rams, because I don't really know what to make of this team. They won a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. They still have the same quarterback. They still have the same head coach. They still have the best player, arguably, in all of football on the defensive side, in Aaron Donald. They, when healthy, arguably have the best wide receiver in the league in Cooper Kupp, yet everyone is writing them off this year. They dealt with a lot of injuries last year. They also dealt with a lot of departures. That seems to be a pretty good core still, and yet they're not in the conversation. What do I make of the LA Rams this season?
When I was out there talking to Sean McVay, it was like, look, everyone thinks we're going to be a 5-win team. Great. Let them think it. It's like, we're in a great place, you guys. I get to coach these young guys up, really coach young guys, which I haven't been able to do for a long time. And we kind of want to be exactly where we are, where no one understands us. No one thinks that we're going to be, anything but a 5-win team. And look, Sean is in this way the eternal optimist. He's like, we're going to surprise a lot of people. And you're right. They still have some weapons where they could do it. But offensive line was a huge problem last year. They need a much better play for that offensive line. They got to figure out what their defense is. When I was there, their defense, they have a lot of young guys on defense who kind of didn't know any better, and it was in a good way. They were just going after it. They brought this different energy than they had last year when it was full of vets. So they were excited about that. But, they definitely have the mindset of, hey, everybody thinks we're going to stink. Let them think we're going to stink. And we're going to surprise everybody.
What kind of shape is Matthew Stafford in? Because there were reports that
better than last year.
There were reports that they were potentially talking to teams about moving Matthew Stafford this year.
There was a couple of teams who called them, and they kind of were like, "Oh, what would you give us?" Because that's what you'd ask, and then just it never went anywhere.
Jay, I'm curious about the Chargers. Like, there's probably no other team that want to start the season because of the way it ended for them last year in that second half against Jacksonville. Apparently, Herbert has a wide open offense out there. What are you going to see that's different from them? Why are the Chargers going to be actually good this year?
I really like the Chargers. Obviously, they got a new coordinator there in Kellen Moore. So see how that can mesh with the quarterback. I really like the Chargers. Yeah. I really do. And, they actually, Brandon Staley defensively is fantastic, but they didn't play well on defense last year. So if you can get that unit up to where you think a Brandon Staley defensive unit would get to in another year with Herbert and those weapons he has over there, I think they're a team that's going to be, they could be a deep playoff team this year.
Yeah, I don't think there was another team where it was more obvious that seemed like, the offensive play calling was holding them back. And a lot of people try to say it was Herbert's injury, but his injury wasn't a factor by the time the playoffs came, and they're still doing the same thing.
His injury was barely a factor in that game. That should have been an injury. He shouldn't have played in. Listen, he is a tough dude, but he's kind of everything you want in a quarterback, man. He really is. And he can make throws that most other quarterbacks can't make. Think about how he came into this league. Like, who can come into this league on 8 seconds notice against the Chiefs? And by the way, you're going in now.
Right.
He's just kind of unflappable. He's a star, man. He is a stud.
Should there be any concern for Brandon Staley? Because 2 years ago, he was like the boy genius in the league that everybody wanted. Last year, people were already questioning him. And this year, it seems like you got to win or you may be in trouble.
No, I think he knows that too. He understands that. Last year, his name was on the chopping block a little bit. But they, looked at it and said, no, we're going to give him one more year here. And, hopefully that, he can correct some of those wrongs that he had. He's a good coach. He's a really good coach. And he's real, like I said, he connects with every kind of player. But yeah, I think Brandon Staley knows this is it for him. He's got to produce.
Is this going to be another year where we say, man, the Niners are good, but dang it, they haven't figured out the quarterback situation?
Well,
or did they?
Their quarterback is their quarterback, right? In their mind, they figured it out. And here's the thing. Kyle Shanahan is so hard on quarterbacks. His offense is so difficult. So when he finds a guy that really just picks it up with the speed, it's one thing about getting Kyle's offense. There's another thing about getting it. I got it, but I got it a half a second late. And that's where you get screwed. And that's what happens to a lot of the quarterbacks in there. But I was just with them when they were in Vegas when they were practicing against the Raiders, and they are all in on Purdy. They believe in him. It's interesting because he got the surgery on his elbow, and most NFL players don't get that surgery. It's more of a baseball injury. So baseball players get that surgery because of how much those pitchers throw, the velocity, how often they throw per game. So they'll get that surgery because Purdy comes from a baseball family. They decided they got kind of that doctors working from that point of view. They did the surgery, and it ended up turning out well for them. But there was, they're holding their breath there. But no, they were, just talking to Kyle Shannon. He's like, man, he just gets he sees it, he gets it, and he gets it instantly. And that's what they need.
Really quickly, Jake, will Trey Lance ever get it, or will he always be a step behind? And that would be a shocking move to have that high of a draft pick, have him move on already, especially when you have the guy taking over.
But you see it all the time. Every year you see these quarterbacks. It's a quarterback league. You need a quarterback. Your life sucks when you don't have a quarterback. So you are willing to overscout and give guys grades where they shouldn't have because you're just hoping, man, this guy's going to turn into Justin Herbert. You're just hoping that it'll happen.
Well, check out Jay's podcast.
That's why we see so many busts.
Unbreakable with Jay Glazer, a mental health podcast, and his book, Unbreakable, How I Turned My Depression and Anxiety into Motivation, and you can too. Thank you, Jay.